Let's talk instead about a mystery interstellar object that was spotted by astronomers last week. It could be the oldest comet ever seen.
July 4th, 2025. The same day the world celebrates independence, it loses something far greater, the illusion of cosmic solitude. Across the globe, radio telescopes are tracking a familiar intruder. The name hasn't been uttered in years.
Pan-STARRS spotted an object moving rapidly between the stars, and this time the usual follow-up measurements of position and speed showed something completely different.
Yet it carries the weight of an unsolved mystery, Oumuamua. But this isn't the drifting, silent object that slipped past us in 2017. This time, it's on a controlled trajectory. Every adjustment in its path is precise, deliberate, and one voice turns the moment into a global conversation. But to make sense of this alien return, the origin has to be understood. Flashback, the first encounter in 2017. October 19, 2017. On the slopes of Haleakala in Hawaii, the Pan-STARRS telescope catches sight of something unusual, a faint streak against the black. By the time astronomers realize what they've found, it's already on its way out of the solar system. The object is unlike anything ever recorded. It isn't bound by the sun's gravity. It isn't looping back for another orbit. It's passing through and leaving. This is the first confirmed interstellar visitor in human history. Its name, chosen in Hawaii where it was discovered, is Oumuamua, messenger from afar arriving first. At first, it's classified as a comet, but there's a problem. No glowing coma, no dust tail, nothing that marks it as such. It's reclassified as an asteroid, only to be given a brand new category altogether. I for interstellar. Measurements suggest an object somewhere between 100 and 1,000 meters long. Its brightness pulses every few hours as it tumbles in space, hinting at an elongated, cigar-like shape, or perhaps a flattened pancake. It reflects 10 times more light than a typical comet, making its surface appear unusually bright. Its path is hyperbolic, a clean escape from the sun's grip. At closest approach, on September 9th, it blazed past our star at 87 kilometers per second. But the real shock comes as it leaves. Instead of slowing under the sun's pull, Oumuamua accelerates, just slightly, but enough to defy every known law of natural motion for an object like this. There's no visible gas jet, no dust, nothing that would explain the push. Infrared scans find nothing either. The data is limited. The window to observe it closes in weeks, and what little we learn doesn't match anything in the catalog of known space objects. Astronomers are left with a puzzle, one that natural explanations strain to solve, and that some will soon claim might have no natural explanation at all. But the debate over what Oumuamua really was would prove to be only the beginning. Theories and debate after 2017. With Oumuamua now vanishing into the dark, the only thing left was the data and the arguments over what it meant. Some scientists leaned toward natural explanations. One theory suggested it could be a fragment of nitrogen ice, blasted from the surface of a Pluto-like world in a distant star system. Such a fragment, shaped and smoothed over millions of years in interstellar space, could account for its unusual brightness and acceleration without leaving a visible trail. Another proposal described it as a hydrogen iceberg, a body made almost entirely of frozen hydrogen, releasing invisible gas as it warmed near the sun. Hydrogen would escape without producing detectable dust or a visible tail, making the outgassing effectively invisible to our instruments. A third possibility labeled it a dark comet, a body without the glowing coma or tail we associate with comets. In this view, hydrogen trapped deep inside ice crystals could have been released after long exposure to cosmic radiation, producing thrust too subtle for traditional comet science to explain. But there was another theory, one that refused to sit quietly on the sidelines. Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb argued that Oumuamua might not be a rock at all, but technology. His idea, a light sail, a wafer-thin craft, no more than a millimeter thick, propelled by the push of sunlight across interstellar space. The suggestion split the scientific community. Loeb published detailed arguments, pointing to the object's extreme shape, unusual acceleration, and lack of typical cometary signatures. In response, Cornell researcher Darryl Seligman and others countered with their own analyses, defending natural explanations and challenging Loeb's assumptions. The result was an open, public, back-and-forth alien technology versus exotic natural physics. Yet, for all the theories, none could fully explain the object's strange mix of properties. Too shiny for a comet, too fast for an asteroid, accelerating without visible fuel. Every model solved one part of the puzzle, but none solved it all. And so, Oumuamua left toward Pegasus, carrying a secret no one could crack. But the mystery was far from over, because 8 years later, it would return and bring an answer no one saw coming. The return changes everything. 8 years after it vanished into interstellar space, the unthinkable happens. On July 4th, 2025, Oumuamua is spotted again, a faint but unmistakable object against the black, its trajectory cutting back toward the inner solar system. Astronomers immediately recognize its signature motion and brightness profile from 2017. But this time, something is different. Tracking stations begin feeding in new positional data. At first, the readings seem like noise, small deviations from the predicted path. But as more observations come in from observatories across the globe, a pattern emerges. The object is not just coasting along its orbital curve, it is making deliberate changes to its course. The corrections are precise, timed, and controlled, adjustments so exact that they cannot be explained by outgassing, gravitational nudges, or any other known natural process. Each maneuver requires enormous energy, the kind of sustained thrust and control that no drifting comet or asteroid could produce. For scientists, the shift in thinking is immediate. A theory that had once been labeled fringe, the possibility that Oumuamua was of artificial origin, now stands supported by direct observational evidence. Papers that had been dismissed or criticized in 2017 are suddenly back in circulation. Even astronomers who had firmly argued against the idea find themselves re-evaluating old positions in light of this undeniable data. The return becomes a global story overnight. Major news outlets replay archival footage and graphics from its first encounter. Documentaries are re-aired, interviews with researchers resurface, and the unanswered mysteries of 2017 are retold for audiences who now see them in a new light. Social media platforms ignite with theories, analysis threads, and amateur tracking updates, while live streams follow its approach in real time. Governments quietly instruct their space agencies to maintain constant observation. The private sector joins in, with commercial satellites and deep space tracking networks turning their instruments toward the incoming object. Every hour brings new updates, every update feeding into a wave of anticipation. And then, the biggest twist of all arrives, because as Oumuamua approaches, it does something no one was prepared for. The signal, first contact. The first detection is faint, a narrow band of repeating pulses hidden in the static of deep space. At first, the signal blends into the background noise, buried in the constant hum of cosmic radiation that every deep space receiver collects. But once the initial recordings are run through filters, a pattern begins to emerge. Observatories on multiple continents confirm the same thing. It's not random noise. The pulses repeat in a way that follows a deliberate structure, sequences of prime numbers, progressions based on geometric ratios, and precise references to physical constants that are the same everywhere in the universe. These are the hallmarks of a crafted message, the kind of signal scientists have long theorized would be used to announce intelligent origin. As the decoding work begins, something remarkable happens. The message seems to unfold in layers, each part containing instructions for unlocking the next. Built into it is a framework for understanding its own language, step by step, as if the sender anticipated the challenge and prepared a guide. This isn't just a distant transmission saying, "We are here." It is a carefully constructed sequence showing exactly how to listen. For the first time in history, humanity holds recorded, verifiable evidence of intelligent life beyond Earth. Every data set is independently checked and rechecked, leaving no room for doubt. The debate over if has ended. What remains is the far more urgent question of what is this a greeting, a warning, an invitation, or something else entirely. In response, the global scientific community shifts into action. Research alliances form almost overnight. Cryptographers, linguists, mathematicians, and AI engineers begin round-the-clock work sessions, sharing progress in real time. Data flows freely between institutions that, only weeks before, had been rivals. The focus is singular. Crack the message before Oumuamua moves beyond range. And as the race to understand begins, one unlikely place becomes the campfire where millions gather to process what's happening. Joe Rogan, the global campfire. In Austin, Texas, the red on-air light glows in a studio known to millions. Joe Rogan leans into his microphone with a half smile and a shake of his head. His voice carries the same mix of curiosity and disbelief that much of the planet is feeling. It's back, folks. The weird space cigar is back. The sentence needs no context for anyone listening. Oumuamua's return has dominated global headlines, television panels, and online feeds for days. By now, its name is etched into the public consciousness. Every person tuning in already knows the basics, but they want more. Across from Rogan sits Avi Loeb, the Harvard astronomer whose 2017 claim that Oumuamua could be alien technology once drew skepticism, criticism, and even ridicule. Now, with the object's recent controlled maneuvers and the structured signal confirmed by independent observatories, Loeb is no longer a controversial voice on the margins. He's the central figure in the biggest scientific story of the century. The conversation between them is direct and grounded in evidence. They revisit the events of 2017, dissect the details of the new trajectory data, and explain why no natural object could behave in this way. Loeb walks through the physics, the calculations, and the light sail hypothesis that once made headlines for all the wrong reasons, but is now receiving serious attention. Rogan steers the interview into territory few traditional media outlets would touch so openly. Are we about to get a phone call from ET? Who decides if we respond? Are governments telling us everything? The discussion flows between technical science, unanswered questions, and the larger implications for humanity. Loeb stays precise and analytical. Rogan brings the questions and doubts on everyone's mind. Together, they create a space where complexity doesn't get lost in translation, and where speculation is avoided in favor of what can be confirmed. For hours, millions of listeners stay connected, whether in living rooms, during long drives, or late at night with headphones on. The broadcast is both personal and global, intimate and vast. It's more than an interview. It feels like a collective moment of processing, a place where uncertainty is acknowledged and curiosity is shared. In living rooms, cars, and late-night kitchens, people listen as two very different voices. A comedian-turned-broadcaster and a career astrophysicist unpack the biggest discovery in human history. The podcast becomes something larger than an interview. It's a global campfire, a place where the world can think out loud together. And as Rogan signs off, the questions hanging in the air are the same ones circling every dinner table and news desk on Earth. What does the message mean? And what happens when we finally understand it? The global reaction, a planet in conversation. The signal from Oumuamua doesn't just spark a scientific race, it sparks a cultural reckoning. In churches, mosques, temples, and meeting halls, religious leaders speak to crowds and congregations about what this moment could mean. Some frame it as a reaffirmation of creation, that life elsewhere fits into a divine plan stretching far beyond Earth. Others struggle openly with the theological implications, questioning long-held interpretations of humanity's role and purpose. Across lecture halls and podcasts, philosophers revisit questions that have shaped human thought for centuries. If intelligent life exists beyond Earth, how should we understand our own place in the universe? Are we still unique, or just one among many? The discussions aren't about abstract ideas anymore. They're tied to a concrete event, a real signal, recorded and confirmed. In studios and galleries, artists respond with speed and intensity. Songs, paintings, and digital art attempt to capture the scale of the moment, while filmmakers begin crafting stories that blur the old line between science fiction and reality. The alien encounter is no longer an imagined what if, but a present tense reality. Social media becomes an unfiltered stream of wonder, humor, fear, and hope. Memes circulate alongside live updates from observatories. Every new decoded fragment of the message becomes global news within minutes. For many, the divisions that have defined nations and politics seem smaller. The sight of an object from another star, sending us a message, forces a kind of perspective rarely shared by billions at once. Oumuamua becomes a mirror, reflecting both our fragility and our shared existence on a single small world. But while the world reacts in thought and expression, another response is taking shape. One that doesn't involve words or philosophy, but data, precision, and the relentless pursuit of understanding. The new scientific race, decoding the message. Within hours of the signal's confirmation, the focus of the world's most powerful observatories shifts. Giant radio dishes from California to Chile, from South Africa to Australia, all lock onto a single point in the sky, the returning visitor. This isn't a passive watch anymore. It's an all-out attempt to decode. Teams work around the clock, rotating in shifts to keep the flow of analysis unbroken. The signal is too consistent, too deliberate, to risk missing even a second. New algorithms are built in real time, written and refined by groups who just days ago were working on entirely different projects. These programs are designed to peel away the layers of the transmission, isolating repeating elements and mapping the relationships between them. Each breakthrough reveals more structure, patterns within patterns, as if the senders built the message to challenge and teach at the same time. Rivalries that once slowed collaboration dissolve under the weight of the moment. Data moves instantly across borders, traveling from telescope arrays to university research centers, then to AI systems running millions of decoding permutations every second. Decades of competition are replaced by a sense of urgent unity. What used to take months of guarded research now happens in days, sometimes hours. For SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, the mission changes overnight. This is no longer about scanning the stars for the faintest hints of life. This is about engaging in the first known conversation with another intelligence, and doing it while the sender is still within range. But decoding is only half the story, because once we understand the message, another question will rise. One far more complicated, far more dangerous. The question of reply. As the signal is slowly unraveled, a new and far more divisive question takes center stage. Should we answer? The discussion doesn't just play out in scientific circles. It spills into parliaments, newsrooms, classrooms, and kitchen tables. For some, the very idea is reckless. Contact could bring unknown risks, they argue, and silence might be our safest defense. The history of exploration on Earth offers grim reminders. First meetings between civilizations have rarely been equal or without harm. Others see a reply as inevitable, a once-in-history chance to reach across the void and announce ourselves. They argue that any species capable of sending such a message likely already knows we exist. To stay silent now would be to waste the most profound opportunity humanity has ever had. If we do respond, the next problem is even trickier. Who gets to speak for Earth? Will it be a coalition of governments, the United Nations? Or should the voice be chosen by humanity as a whole, beyond politics and borders? These debates ignite as leaders, scientists, and citizens all stake their claim to representation. And then comes the matter of what we send. Do we reply with the language of science, equations, measurements, and universal constants? Do we answer with art and culture, offering a glimpse of our imagination and emotion? Or do we keep it simple, a greeting carried on the most basic signals we can transmit? Whatever we choose will be more than just words or data. It will be a declaration of who we are, a snapshot of our species that another intelligence will study, remember, and judge. But before any reply can be sent, one final question hangs over everything. Not about the message we send out, but the message we've just received. The wider search for interstellar visitors. The debate over how to respond to Oumuamua's signal doesn't happen in isolation. It's part of a much bigger story, one where our solar system has been visited before and maybe again. In 2019, astronomers detected 2I/Borisov, the second confirmed interstellar object. Unlike Oumuamua, Borisov looked and behaved like a conventional comet, with a bright coma and a tail stretching behind it. At half a kilometer across, it was large, but it followed the natural patterns we understand. Other unusual objects have been closer to home. Captured interstellar comets like Mach-Holtz 1 and Hyakutake pass through our skies, their origins traced to distant stars. Retrograde asteroid 514107. Kaepaoka Awela moves against the normal direction of planetary orbits, a strange interloper locked into a stable dance with Jupiter. Then there are the dark comets' bodies, without the visible gas tails we expect, but still showing unexplained acceleration. Among them is 1998 KY-26, a small near-Earth asteroid that the Hayabusa 2 mission plans to visit in 2031. With new tools on the horizon, our ability to spot these travelers is about to grow dramatically. The Vera Rubin Observatory is expected to detect similar objects months before they arrive, and the European Space Agency's Comet Interceptor, launching in 2029, is designed to wait in space, ready to meet an unknown object head-on. The universe, it seems, is not a quiet, empty expanse. Visitors have come before, visitors will come again, and the next one might not just pass by. The future, missions, and possibilities. As the debates rage and the signal decoding continues, some scientists are already looking far ahead, not just to listen, but to follow. Project Lyra is one of the most ambitious proposals on the table. Its goal? To send a spacecraft after Oumuamua itself. The mission concepts are bold. One approach involves a solar Oberth maneuver, using a close flyby of Jupiter to sling the craft toward the Sun, then firing its engines at the point of maximum speed. The result would be a blistering acceleration, but the heat and radiation so close to the Sun would demand a shield unlike anything we've built before. Another path trades speed for control, a series of Venus-Earth-Earth-Jupiter gravity assists, using planetary flybys to slowly build velocity. It would take longer, but make it easier to slow down near the target, essential if the mission is to study, rather than simply race past. The timelines are tight. Launch opportunities open between 2030 and 2033. If everything worked perfectly, we might catch up to Oumuamua around the year 2048. Even among scientists, the question is sharp. Is the cost worth it? Or is the knowledge to be gained a direct encounter with something that may not be natural beyond price? One thing is certain. If we decide to chase it, the clock is already ticking, and the window won't stay open forever. From its unexplained appearance in 2017 to its controlled return in 2025 carrying a deliberate signal, Oumuamua has done more than puzzle scientists. It has forced us to reconsider our place in the cosmos. The message it carries is no longer speculation or distant theory. It is proof. Tangible, verifiable, undeniable. We are not alone. And yet, the reality of that truth comes with a choice that could shape the course of our species for centuries to come. Joe Rogan's words linger in the background. This changes everything. He was right. Our debates, our divisions, our daily concerns, they feel small compared to what waits beyond our sky. Now, humanity stands at the edge of something entirely new. The first real dialogue between civilizations. The question is no longer whether we can answer, it is whether we should. And somewhere out there, silent for now, the messenger waits for our reply.